Hello and welcome back to day 4 of Cyclical Awakening. Today we will be discussing the inner summer season as well as the ovulation phase. This quote you see is by Maya Angelou. As you grow older, you'll discover you have two hands. One for helping yourself, the other for helping others. And you'll see as we move through the inner summer season, this is what this season and phase embodies. Let's move on to what is physically happening in our body at this time. So ovulation is the main event of the cycle. We usually call it the menstrual cycle, but we should actually be calling it the ovulation cycle because your menstruation is dependent on your ovulation. Without ovulating, you do not have a real bleed. It is called a withdrawal bleed if you're not ovulating. To experience a real bleed and menstruation, you have to ovulate first. So leading up to ovulation, we have the highest levels of estrogen. If we remember in the inner spring, the estrogen is slowly rising and it gets to the peak at ovulation. So when our estrogen is at its highest levels, we will experience peak level cervical fluid that could be egg white and stretchy and clear, or it can be a watery consistency. This cervical fluid, this type of cervical fluid, is necessary for the sperm to swim easily to reach the egg. If you don't experience this peak type of cervical fluid, then the sperm would have difficulty reaching the egg and will die in the non-peak quality cervical fluid. Also, with this rising of estrogen, there is a rise of testosterone. So the combination leads towards a higher libido. You will feel more drawn to your partner or partners at this time, sexually attracted to other people, to the earth. You will feel a natural connection and draw to things in a more sexual way during the inner summer because of these two hormones. Now, the actual event of ovulation is very short, and the inner summer season encompasses the days before ovulation and the days after. It is usually between day 13 and day 19 when we experience the inner summer. So the time of ovulation is when the egg bursts from its follicle and it enters the fallopian tube. And it lives there in the fallopian tube usually for up to 12 hours. And in some cases can live up to 24 hours before it dies and disintegrates. Now, as I talked yesterday about the follicular phase, the follicular phase is beginning during menstruation and it ends at ovulation. So when you ovulate determines how long or short your follicular phase is. If you experience a really long cycle, that means that you are ovulating later in your cycle and your follicular phase would be longer. The second half of the cycle always stays between 11 and 17 days. So if you experience a 40-day cycle, then the beginning of your cycle would be the long part and the end would only be from The end, meaning after ovulation, would only be from 11 to 17 days. And we know that ovulation can be delayed by any stress that is put on the body. Now, whether that is through emotional stress, mental stress, relational stress, whether it's through diet that you're putting yourself on, if you are traveling, if you're crossing time zones, if there's extra inflammation in your body, if there is ecological grief with the climate or with other social activist things you are involved in, all of those can create stress on our body and cause ovulation to be delayed or not to happen at all. But this ovulation is the determining factor for how long our cycle actually will be. And after ovulation has occurred, there is a dip in the hormones before the progesterone takes over. So you may even be able to experience a slightly different summer leading up to ovulation, and then the days after ovulation before the progesterone takes over and your inner autumn kicks in. Just becoming aware that that is a big change happening in your body, from the egg being released and estrogen being at its highest to then the drop of estrogen and the growth of the progesterone. So let's move on to see what's happening in our energetic bodies. So the inner summer is your time to shine and to blossom. We have been slowly growing through the inner spring, and we reach the height at the inner summer. So you may feel things like radiant, fulfilled, courageous, nurturing, social, passionate. You may have a lot of this energy. So a vulnerability to be aware of is if you went too fast and too hard during the inner spring. You know, a lot of us, right after we are done bleeding, we feel the energy and we just kind of kick it up a notch and go back to our normal routines and our normal plans. And then by the time that we get to ovulation, to our inner summer, we may be burnt out because we have used all of that energy up. So this is important for us to have boundaries around our inner spring and watching that energy slowly grow so that we can feel its fullness in the inner summer. So by the time we get to the inner summer, we are ready to share our creations with others out in the world, publicly, whatever that may look like for you. And we will take action towards our calling. As you remember, in the inner winter, when we are resting in our altered state of consciousness, we can receive visions towards what our divine calling is. In the spring, we take those visions and we tend to them and we allow them to grow organically within us. Then the inner summer is the time then to take action on those and put ourselves out there and take a risk. So this is the time for action, for building the collective. So if you are part of a community, doing things with the community, bringing that vision into the community, or being a transformation, whether that is a personal transformation that you are wanting to take, feeling called to take, or whether it is the transformation of relationships or your work, your family, whatever it is outside of yourself, the inner summer is the time to act upon that. Now, the inner summer, our time of ovulation, can be influenced by when we are ovulating with which moon. So if we see ovulating with the full moon is connected to our creations becoming palpable. So that is ourselves moving outward, giving ourselves outward, taking the creations and making them seen and touched and heard and making them tangible in the world. If we are ovulating with the new moon, that is connected to our creations turning inward. So if we are doing, inner work, that we are creating transformation within ourselves, if we are creating new stories for ourselves, healing wounds, that action that we do will be turned inward more if we are ovulating during the new moon. And then if you're not ovulating on either end of the spectrum, but somewhere in the middle, we have the waxing moon is the growth and the waning moon is the releasing. So connect with those different moon energies and see when you are ovulating with them, what that looks like for your experience. So we know that ovulation is the pivot point from growth and expansion to releasing and surrender. So our inner spring is that growth and expansion. We are growing into something. We come to the realization and the fullness of that something in the inner summer. Before then, we turn around and begin to release and surrender those things that are no longer made to be with us. So you can see clearly where you have come from and where you are going. Let's explore the archetype for the inner summer, which is the mother. Now, as we know, the inner summer and ovulation is our fertile period. So we are connected to the mothering energy of creation, whether we are literal mothers or not. Now, your own mother, or lack thereof, will shape how you see and experience your inner mother. You will experience the way in which your mother treated herself, and that will be reflected in you. Before doing your own healing of your mother wound, which we all have, no matter how, quote, good or quote, bad our mothers were, or how we saw them to be. We have been wounded in some way by the way our mother or mother figure, or lack of a mother figure, that was in our life as we were growing up. Now, the inner summer is a time where we can mother ourselves and our inner child. If our inner child was wounded, then we can choose how we would have wanted to be treated as a child and do that for ourselves during this time. Then we can also expand that mothering energy towards our families and our communities. And the ideal mother knows when to get close and be nurturing, and knows when to step back and let go. So learning our boundaries and how they are essential for our inner mother archetype, especially during the inner summer as we're connected to this energy. We may want to mother and nurture and get close and social and take care of many people in our lives, often forgetting about ourselves. The essential thing is to remember our boundaries and become aware when we have the energy to give and when we have the energy just to step back and receive. Some of the mother goddesses that we can connect with at this time are Mother Mary, Demeter, Danu, Bridget, Freya, Bast, Gaia as the Mother Earth essence, and Isis. So some of the other correlations for the inner summer would be the full moon, showing that fullness, reflecting all of the sun's light off of its face, is the same as the fullness we can experience in our inner summer. This is the height of the masculine, the yang energy, and that outward focus. It's also connected to the fire element. So it is that internal fire that we will feel during this time that will cause us to take action. And that is connected to the tarot suit of wands, the tarot suit that is one of action. If we are following the wheel of the year, this would be Letha, which is the summer solstice, and Lughnasadh, which is the crossover between the end of summer and the beginning of autumn. We are practicing our breathing. This is the holding after our inhalation, when our lungs are nice and full and holding that there. This is the height of day, the noonday sun when it is bright and shining. It is also the direction of south. And it is the time of blooming and producing fruit, as we see happening on the earth during the summer. If we take a look at some of the rituals that may be helpful for us during this time, we can practice breast massage. There is a natural connection between our heart and the inner summer as we are feeling that mothering energy and the want of spending time with others in care and nurture. We also need to nurture our own heart, and our breasts are energetic gatekeepers of the heart. The more we can love and massage our breasts, the more we can love and massage our hearts at the same time. The inner summer is a great time to go outside. It might be hard to be still and practice a silent sitting meditation, but it could be a lot easier to go outside and practice a walking meditation, or doing activities like hiking or skiing, depending on the outside weather. You can also work in the garden, get your hands dirty, build up a sweat. And with those things you find in your garden or in the forest, you can create art and make things like smudge sticks or nature mandalas. Another thing that you can do is pamper yourself during the inner summer. You can get yourself a massage, acupuncture, cupping, microneedling, whatever it is that would help you feel nourished and taken care of during this time. And also the inner summer is when our pain tolerance is at its height. So getting things that otherwise might feel sensitive or painful would be a lot easier during the inner summer. Another thing to do is community care. Reaching out and giving of your time, energy, or money for the benefit of others and the earth. This is the essence of the inner summer energy. And then to celebrate. Just remember that you are an amazing human and you have made it this far. So take time during the inner summer to really celebrate who you are and where you have come from and where you are going.